I issued an eviction order. Whether it's Xie Xian or Shen Lian, they both make me extremely sick. The former is a lover and the latter is a friend. These two people have occupied almost all of my 28 years of life, and their betrayal at the same time was like a bolt from the blue to me. Seeing my firm attitude, Shen Lian whispered, "I'm sorry," and left. I stayed in the hospital for more than half a month and I didn't see Xie Xian. I had a premonition of this, and although I was still sad, the heartrending pain was no longer there. On the contrary, it was Shen Lian who came to my ward to report in morning, noon and night, just like clocking in all day long. My parents were very critical of Xie Xi's decision to visit me. My mother even said that it would be better for me to get engaged to Shen Lian. I don't know how to tell my parents about Xie Xian's cheating yet. In addition, I was hospitalized again, so I didn't tell my parents first. However, I contacted a lawyer while I was in the hospital and asked the lawyer to help me draft a divorce agreement. I was discharged from the hospital today and planned to go directly to Xie's to find Xie Xian to deliver the divorce agreement. When I arrived outside Xie Xian's office, Xiao Zhou came to greet me from afar. "Madam, you haven't been here for a long time." She spoke to me politely. But I had the feeling that she didn't want me to enter Xie Qian's office. "You go ahead and do your work, I'll just go around by myself." Xiao Zhou hesitated to speak and looked a little embarrassed. I turned a blind eye and walked straight to Xie Xian's office. Xiao Zhou wanted to stop me, but I had already pushed open the office door first. In the office, Xie Xi was sitting on the chair in front of his desk. Qin Yan, wearing a white dress, was sitting astride his lap. Both of them frowned slightly. "Lady." Xiao Zhou next to me was also shocked by the scene in front of him. "Ah." When Qin Yan saw Xiao Zhou and me standing at the door, she screamed in fright. Xie Xian immediately pulled the coat aside and covered her. "Get out." He thought it was his secretary, but he didn't realize he saw me. "You go and do your work first." I asked Xiao Zhou to leave. "I don't want everyone to know about such a disgraceful thing. It will only be my face that is lost." The anger on Xie Xian's face turned to panic, and he suddenly pushed Qin Yan to the ground. He quickly straightened up his appearance and strode towards me without even looking at Qin Yan. When he reached out to pull me, I was the first to say, "Don't touch, it's disgusting." Just 4 words immediately made Xie Xian's eyes turn red, and he said in a hoarse voice, Rue, don't talk to me like that, it will make me uncomfortable." "Are you feeling uncomfortable?" I pointed to the ambiguous hickeys on his neck. "Didn't you feel great just now? You feel uncomfortable when I come here?" Okay. I interrupted Xie Xian and took out the divorce agreement from my bag. "I don't have the heart to argue with you about these disgusting things. Just sign this, and tomorrow we will go to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get the divorce certificate." Xie Qian took the document from my hand hesitantly. When he saw the divorce agreement, his expression suddenly changed. He tore the divorce agreement I handed over into pieces. Rue, there is no way I can divorce you." I glanced at him lightly, as if I was looking at a lunatic, then I took out a stack of divorce papers from my bag. "Since you like to tear it up, then tear it up slowly. The Jiang family still has the money to print the divorce agreement." After I finished speaking, I was about to leave, but Xie Xian took advantage of me. He grabbed my wrist. I threw it away in disgust. He dragged me tightly, as if he wanted to crush all my bones. Rue is just a gadget that I keep outside. It will not affect your status. You are the one I love most. We said we would be together forever, and I have not forgotten it. Xie Xian's pupils showed seriousness and a bit of condescension. He has been sitting in a high position for a long time, and at some point, he no longer puts me on his equal footing. So if he decides that he admits his mistake, I will forgive him. I laughed out loud. "Thank you. Do you still remember what you said when you knelt in front of me when you were 18? His eyelashes twitched slightly, obviously remembering. "You said that I am the only one in this life. I will continue to love you because of your words, but what about you now?" I turned my head and looked at Qin Yan, who was sitting on the ground with tears in her eyes. Here, the biological mother of your illegitimate son. Rue, no, her pregnancy was just an accident. Xiaxian hurriedly explained. If you don't go to bed with her, can she get pregnant on her own? Please be kind to me as a man. I used all my strength to break open Xiaxian's hand, turned around, and left. I moved back home that night. I expected that Xiaxian might go to the villa where we lived to wait for me, and I simply wasn't going to ask for those things anymore. I told my parents about Xiaqian's cheating and that there was a child outside. My parents were so angry that they both supported my divorce. I hugged my parents and felt full of happiness in my heart. In my heart, my parents are always more important than Xiaxian, which is why I made up my mind to divorce so quickly. I'm afraid that if Xiaxian and I get involved, my parents will really end up like in the book. I love my parents. I hope they live healthily and safely. It started raining heavily on the third day after returning home. The weather has been foggy for several days. During this period, Xiaxian refused to agree to divorce, so I simply called a lawyer to appeal. One night, I was woken up from my sleep. I looked at Xia's mother outside the door, hesitated for a while, and finally just called Auntie. The moment she heard me call her aunt, Xia's mother's eyes turned red. Xia's mother has loved me as her own daughter since I was a child. After I married into the Xia family, she took very good care of me. I couldn't bear to see her like this, so I asked, Auntie, why are you here so late? Rue, I know all the bastard things that a Xia did. It's him who feels sorry for you. At the end of Xia's mother's words, I realized that it was Xiaqian who was repeating her old tricks. He is kneeling outside my villa, in the heavy rain. No matter who called him, he would not get up. Mom sighed, and then said to me, Rue, let's talk to him. I know my mother is soft-hearted after all. For more than 20 years, why hasn't she treated Xiaxian as her own son? I held an umbrella and walked into the heavy rain. Xiaqian was only wearing a thin shirt, which was already soaked by the rain. Now that the weather has entered early autumn, the temperature is a bit cold at night, and his lips are white from the cold. Seeing me coming, Xiaqian came forward on her knees and hugged my legs. Rue, you are the only person I love from beginning to end. I can't live without you. I was wrong. I will deal with her well. Can we not divorce? Didn't we agree to be together forever? I just accidentally took the wrong path. Don't give up on me. Can you give me another chance? Rue. I looked down at Xiaxian confessing to me. Tears mixed with rain flowed from his eyes. His once high-spirited face was now completely white except for his red eyes, different from ordinary people's whiteness. Xiaxian is very good at pretending to be pitiful. He also knows what expressions are most likely to make me soften. Seeing him like this, I did feel soft-hearted for a moment. But I won't forgive him. It was he who betrayed our love first. Later, I called the bodyguard and forcibly sent Xiaxian back. Aunt Xia patted my hand before leaving. She opened her mouth, but in the end she said nothing. For a while, Xiaxian didn't show up again. Just when I thought Xiaxian had given up, I received a call from my father while I was on a business trip abroad. After receiving the call from my father, I immediately returned to China. Dad said on the phone that Xiaqian was deliberately suppressing our family's business recently. At first, my father didn't want to tell me because he was afraid that I would worry, but now Zhang's company has been robbed of several projects in succession, and its old customers have also terminated their contracts with the group under Xiaxian's instructions. If left alone, the Jiang family will be destroyed within a month. Xiaxian is the male protagonist, and the author gave him a golden thumb. If he wanted to bring down a company, within a week, there would be no trace of that company in the capital. The reason why he slowly tortured Mrs. Jiang was simply because of me. Obviously I have given up my position, and he can legitimately be with Qin Yan. I don't understand why Xiaxian doesn't want to let me go. When I arrived at Xiaxian was still in a meeting. I ignored Xiao Zhou's obstruction and pushed open the door of the conference room. The senior executives who were having a meeting in the conference room all looked at me. Sian, who was sitting in the upper seat, looked like a victorious king when he saw me. There was a determined smile on his lips. "You guys go out first, the meeting will continue in the afternoon." Sian gave an order, and everyone in the conference room took their things and walked out. As I passed by, many sympathetic eyes fell on me. I suppressed my anger, not wanting to explode in front of so many people. When the door of the conference room clicked shut, Sian stood up and walked to my side. He looked at me as if nothing had happened between us. "You're back from a business trip? Are you tired?" He took my hand affectionately, acting like a gentle and considerate husband. "What on earth do you want to do?" I shook him off hard. "Honey, as long as you say a word, those projects and cooperation will return to the Jiang family." He raised his hand and touched my cheek lightly. The cold touch made me feel extremely sick. He said, "Honey, as long as I am here, the Jiang family will not collapse." He didn't hide the threat in his words. If I insist on divorcing him, the Jiang family will face bankruptcy. This is the first time that I have personally experienced in CSCI the overwhelming power that covers the sky with one hand. "Thank you." On the bed in the office lounge, I lay on the bedside, buried my face in the pillow, and let tears overflow. I can't ignore my parents. CSCI is a madman. He used to disguise himself so well in front of me that I forgot that he was a very paranoid character in the novel. What he wants, he will get by any means possible. "I'm sorry, wife, I couldn't hold it back. I won't do it next time. I was just careful not to hurt our baby." Sian thought I was pregnant before. I didn't explain. To this day, he still thinks that I am carrying his child. "What are you going to do with Chenyan and that illegitimate child?" I spoke in a low voice, and the originally cold voice now had a hint of charm. Sian always said before that I was like a bright moon hanging in the sky, cold, aloof, and unattainable. He liked the extreme contrast when I was under him. I have been with Sian for many years, so I naturally know what tone and expression can best move him. Sure enough, when he saw me with red eyes and messy hair, he immediately came over and kissed me. I resisted the churning in my stomach and didn't move away. "Rue, I will send them away, don't worry." He kissed me on the forehead reverently, and then hugged me. "Honey, we want to be together forever." Knock knock. Hearing a knock on the door, I stood up and walked towards the entrance. The door opened, and Shenlian's slightly embarrassed face appeared in front of me. Rue. He just called my name, and when he lowered his head and saw the sexy pajamas on me, he immediately blushed. He quickly took off his coat and covered me. I expressionlessly took off my clothes and threw them to the ground. "Lift your feet and close the door." "Don't you like me? Don't you want to?" I stood up on tiptoes and kissed him lightly on the lips. As if a spell had been cast on Shenlian, he stood there and stared at me blankly. After a while, he said in a hoarse voice, "Rue, don't hurt yourself, it's not worth it. He can cheat, why can't I?" I let go of Shenlian with some lack of interest. "Since you don't want to, then I'll find someone else. You can go." I gave the order to leave without hesitation and walked inside. The moment I turned around, my wrist was pulled, and what followed was an overwhelming kiss. When the love was intense, Shenlian told me his feelings over and over again in my ears. To be honest, I don't care what his feelings are for me. Until he said those words, I gently hugged his neck and smiled cutely. "Are you really willing to do anything for me?" Shenlian nodded yes without hesitation. "Thank you for thinking I was pregnant." His eyelashes flickered, and after 2 seconds of silence, he lowered his head and kissed me. Rue, how are you?" When Sian came anxiously and walked into the ward, my face turned pale. I think he must have learned about my miscarriage from Shenlian. In the ward, Chenyan supported Xiaichin and stood beside my bed, helplessly. When she saw Xiacian, it was as if she saw the backbone. "Goodbye." When Xiacian came over, she wanted to hold Xiacian back. Xiacian didn't look at her, but just walked straight towards me. child." When he said these two words, Xiaoxian's eyes flashed with pain. After we reconciled, it seemed like we were back to the past, but he and I were both aware of the changes. He was looking forward to the arrival of this child. He thinks that with children, we can go back to the old days. But now, his dear son cut off his thoughts with his own hands. Xiaochen pushed me down in full view of everyone, and the bright red blood stained my pants. The blood was actually Shen Lian's. When he called Xiaoxian, he told Xiaoxian all this. The reason why I asked Shen Lian to help me do this was, firstly, because Xiaoxian trusted Shen Lian, and secondly, because of the Shen family's status in the medical community in the capital. As long as Shen Lian lets go, no matter where I go to check, I all had miscarriages. Thank you, he can't find out. Why did you push her? She's pregnant, did you know? Xiaoxian turned around and glared at his favorite son in the past. I know Xiaoxian is really angry this time. Last time, Xiaoqian said that she would send Qinyan and her son away, but in fact, they didn't send them away at all. They just moved to a villa halfway up the mountainside in the suburbs since I'm having a hard time. Then I won't make it easy for Xiaoxian and Qinyan. Dad, are you hurting me? Xiaochen's eyes were filled with disbelief. Did I tell you not to disturb her? Xiaoxian did not answer Xiaochen's question, but instead pointed the finger at Qinyan. Qinyan's tears fell heavily. She looked at Xiaoxian sadly. Since you dislike our mother and son so much, let's go. After she finished speaking, she took Xiaochen and walked out. Although Qinyan was full of energy, she walked very slowly. She was waiting for Xiaofei to stop her. This time, Qinyan was going to be disappointed. Xiaoxian ignored her, but sat down next to the hospital bed and gently took my hand. Rue, we will have another child. He knew that I would not dare to fall out with him. I really never thought about breaking up with him. ACI, I'm so scared. I hugged Xiaoxian helplessly, buried my face in his shoulder, and let my tears wet his clothes. Don't be afraid, I'm here. He patted my back gently and whispered words of comfort. Is he afraid that I will compete with him for family property after I give birth to a child, so he pushed me away on purpose? What if I'm still pregnant in the future and he pushes me again? You have no other children. From now on, all your inheritance will belong to Qinyan, mother and son. There was fear in my voice, and I kept digging into Xiaoxian's arms. He can't stand me like this. No, my inheritance will belong to you and my children from now on. I stayed in the hospital for less than half a month before going home. 3 months later, I heard from Shen Lian that Xiaoqian still did not send Qinyan and her son away, and they still lived in the villa halfway up the mountain. I'm unfazed by this. After I was discharged from the hospital, I almost transformed into a good wife and mother. Cook meals for Xiaoxian every day and send them to him at the company. Several times I saw another pink thermal lunch box hidden by him under the table, and I pretended not to see it. After saying goodbye and having dinner, I took the thermos box and walked out. At the same time, he clicked on his mobile phone to look at the menu that Qinyan was going to make for the evening, which was sent by the servants at the villa halfway up the mountain. I raised my lips and handed over the red envelope. When the news of Xiaoqian's death came, I was shopping with my friends. On the phone, Xia's mother was crying out of breath. From her intermittent words, I heard the real reason for Xiaoxian's death. He was in a trance and drove into a reservoir. Xiaoxian has often felt nauseous and vomiting in the past month, so I often massage his temples. When I heard it, my eyes immediately turned red. My friend looked at me worriedly and immediately drove me to the hospital. In the hospital, Xiaoxian was soaked in water and was beyond recognition. Since both Xia's parents were there, I didn't show any abnormality. I burst into tears, which made my parents feel very distressed. After thanking and for her funeral, I lay in the hospital for half a month on the pretext of fainting from excessive sadness and did not show up. Qinyan came to see me a week after the funeral. During this time, the Xia family had already recognized Xiaochen. After all, this was Xiaoxian's only son. After Xie Xian died, the Xie family's parents poured all their affection into Xie Aichen. Mother Xie told me that this child can be recorded in my name. I refused immediately. Only the Xie family could do such a disgusting thing. Ms. Jiang. Chen Yan wore a red dress today. She was full of jewels and looked very gaudy. My son has been recognized back to the Xie family, and the Xie family has also recognized my identity. In the future, my status in the Xie family will be much higher than yours. Her face was full of pride. I curled my lips. We'll see. My reaction was not in line with Chen Yan's expectations. In her mind, I will definitely be like a shrew, loudly accusing and insulting her. She was wrong. I am a decent person and cannot do such a dishonorable thing. Chen Yan said a lot more, but I was still neither salty nor salty. Finally, she left in anger. After she left, Shen Lian pushed open the door and walked in. He looked at me. When are you going to be discharged from the hospital? Just today. After lying in the hospital for so long, I was going moldy. He said okay and started to collect my things. Shen Lian put me in the car. Before closing the door, he held the door again and whispered, "Can I still go to you?" I tilt my head. Thinking of Shen Lian's initial jerkiness and subsequent ease, I raised my eyebrows. As long as you are clean, you can do it at any time. Shen Lian's eyes lit up, and his heavy face finally showed his first smile of the day. See you tonight. I looked away and asked the driver to drive. Thanks to An's death, it's time to deal with his estate. When I arrived at Xie's house, all Xie's family members were there, including Chen Yan, who was acting mischievously in my ward not long ago. When she saw me, Xie's mother held Xie Aichen on her lap, with a hint of defensiveness in her eyes. Mother Xie twitched her lips and greeted me. I politely said hello to the Xie family and then signaled to the lawyer to start. When the lawyer said that Xie Xian had made a will, both the Xie family and his wife were stunned. Xie Xian was only 29 this year. How could he make a will so early, especially in his will? It is written that after his death, all his property will belong to me and my children. Xie Xian and I don't have children. Those inheritances will naturally belong to me. Did you intentionally hurt Xian? Chen Yan pointed at me and said loudly. Xie's parents didn't speak. But they obviously agreed with Chen Yan's words. The lawyer pursed his lips and said, Mr. Xie made this will a year ago. It was because Mr. Xie pushed away the child in Mrs. Xie's belly. Mr. Xie made it in order to prevent Mrs. Xie from having to worry about the future. This will is evidenced by video. After speaking, the lawyer turned on his phone again and opened the video. The Xie family naturally did not accept such a result. Xie Xian is the largest shareholder of Xie's group. If I inherit his inheritance, then I will become the largest shareholder of Xie's group. I in my hands. Sooner or later, Mr. Xie will change his surname to Jiang. The Xie family thinks so, and so do I. However, no matter how much trouble Xie's family makes, I have already taken over all of Xie Xian's inheritance. I joined Xie's company the next day and took over Xie Xian's job. My years of working in the family group were not in vain. After I pretended to get back together with Xie Xian, I had been preparing for this day for more than a year, and I quickly started working at Xie's group. Of course, there were also some high-level officials who made things difficult for me. I used both kindness and power, and soon conquered them. Chen Yan came to Xie's and made trouble several times. I directly asked the security to call the police. She was detained for half a month and she calmed down after she was released. The Xie family's parents also came to try and make peace. I was polite on the surface, but I didn't give in even an inch. How could I let go of something I finally got? From the moment Xie Xian threatened me with the Jiang family, I knew that power must be in my own hands to be reliable. I opened the door and the smell of food came from the room. Shen Lian was cooking in the kitchen wearing an apron. I changed my shoes and walked into the house. Shen Lian and I have maintained this relationship for several years, and both parties have a tacit understanding and have not mentioned the future. A good friend also asked me, what do Shen Lian and I mean? I said and then replied, let's have some fun. Why is it normal for a man to have a lover outside the home if he has money, but not for a woman? Shen Lianjie takes care of himself and is obedient. I was not in the mood for love, but when I was under great pressure, I always had to resolve it, so I always maintained this relationship with Shen Lian. You're back? Wash your hands and eat. Shen Lian brought the last soup to the table, then came over and kissed me on the face. I will come over to cook for you right after the operation. In the past few years, Shen Lian has evolved from being cautious at first to being able to act pitiful towards me. I washed my hands and ran into Shen Lian's arms when I came back. I said quietly, "Then I will do it? I just don't know if you dare to eat it." Shen Lian's eyes flickered for a moment, and then he smiled and said, "What you did, even if you sprinkled arsenic, I would eat it." I knew he was thinking of Xie Qian. There are some things I didn't want to do, but Xie Qian forced me to do them. He threatened me with the Jiang family and completely stepped on my bottom line. As soon as I sat down, Shen Lian pushed the soup over and said, "Drink the soup first." I picked up the spoon and took a sip. Shen Lian's cooking skills are very good. In the past few years, I had been stuck in his mouth. While eating, I heard about Qin Yan from Shen Lian. After Qin Yan found out that she couldn't make any money from Xie's family, she turned around and started looking for other wealthy husbands. Unexpectedly, she encountered a pig-killing plate and was deceived into being penniless. She wanted to return to Xie's house again. However, the Xie family did not allow her to enter, and even her son, who had always loved her, did not want to recognize her. I actually have no interest in Qin Yan's ending. Now that I have money, power, and good looks, all I think about when I open my eyes every day is how to make more money. I have no time to think about insignificant people like Qin Yan.